Hello guys and welcome to another video. Today we are going to talk about healers and what people should expect from you and what you should expect from others while in raid environment if you are playing a healer. The first thing that comes on my mind when we are talking about healers is party chat, and putting healers in the same group from the perspective of Wrath of the Lich King is really important because of mana tide totem, obviously, but even if that was not the case, if that spell was not in the game, you should be putting all healers in the same party. What that does is that allows all healers to be in the same party and allows them to use party chat, and they can communicate with each other without disrupting anybody else, and they can do their assignments for upcoming bosses, and it really helps out for them to perform a little bit better. If you have a party of constant healers that are healing throughout raid week after week, that party chat should be really working well, and the communication between your healers should be on point. As well, a really important thing when you are a healer is understanding the fight. Now, understanding the fight from the perspective of the healer is important from few things. First of them is using raid cooldowns. Now, if you don't know when a certain events inside some raid encounter will happen, you don't know when you should be using your cooldowns, and if you use them on the wrong time, or if you don't use them at all, that is making such a huge difference. Because, for example, on Sindragosa, as in Lich King, the fights that are really emphasized on this raid cooldown usage, if you don't use, for example, as a holy paladin, if you don't use raid suck on blisterings, you are wasting cooldown that could prevent 20% damage from that blistering on the whole raid, because whole raid at that point will get damage from it, and you can prevent with one button 20% of that damage. So understanding when a certain events will happen inside the fight, and understanding that they are important to be covered with the raid cooldown is really important. Now that brings us back to the party chat, and healers inside that group splitting their jobs and making assignments. So the holy paladin number 1 will use it on first blistering, then the other paladin will use it on second blistering, and then when the boss is back for the second time for the third blistering, the paladin number 1 will have it again because it's back from the cooldown. Those things must be working perfectly between everybody who is in a healer group. So communication is really important. Understanding raid encounters and events when they will happen is also one thing that is extremely important, and beside that, obviously, you need to split the assignments between all the healers. Now, mana management is as well one more thing that is important, but when you get more gear, this is not as big of a deal. But if you are progressing, and certainly on private servers, progressive servers are gaining in popularity, so you might not have all the gear you can have. So understanding also and min-maxing mana hymns and mana tides is really important, and especially on the longer fights, even with the high gear. I talked about this on my LOD 0% guide. On Lich King, as a long fight, you really need to have that mana management from the mana tides and from the mana hymns. So that's also a thing to have in mind, but only if the fights are really long, and only if you are struggling with mana because you are low on gear. Also, later on, when Ruby Sanctum is there, and if you are having GTS trinket from the Ruby Sanctum, that's also a big cooldown. and you should be assigning those inside that healer party, because, for example, a really good usage of this trinket is on Lich King while you are inside the Frost mode, on heroic mode only. So every time when you go inside the Frost mode, one healer should be using it, and that will make big difference in the healing throughput. Also, one thing that people on private servers are doing, in my opinion, not as much as they should, is DPSing as a healer. Now, especially when you progress through the fights and you are on farm and you have a lot of gear, you will not be needed to heal as much. Just do as much damage as possible when there is nothing to heal. And that brings us again to the understanding the raid encounter, because sometimes there is nothing happening and you can just DPS. And sometimes, and then you know, okay, I need to prepare, I need to ramp up, and then the thing hits, you heal up, then you can DPS again. So min-maxing that is also a really nice thing to do. Having off-spec as a DPS if you are a main healer is also really important, especially on farm. You know, there is no reason to do 5 healers on, if you are on farm, even on Lordaeron. There is absolutely, even on pre-nerfed Lordaeron, there was no need for 5 healers. For 4 healers, yeah, but we even did it with 2 for the half of the ICC, and it was working fine if people are playing good. With 3 healers it was more than fine. With 3 healers we killed even pre-nerfed Professor 25 Heroic and Blood Queen, which is like a big healing check, so that was even possible. So being able to switch from a healer to a DPS on the bosses that doesn't require you to heal is a really good thing to have, and mostly all the healers are good DPSs as well. In a way that Holy Paladin as a Retri Paladin is a good DPS. Discipline Priest or Holy, when switched to DPS spec, which is Shadow, is also pretty good. Druid can be good as well if you have a Resto Druid. Shaman is lacking a little bit, but yeah, it's not a big deal. It's still better than healing when there is nothing to be healed. Also, if you are on progressive server, the thing that you should expect is that you are not priority for the loot. The thing that you need to understand is that healers are mostly about skill. While the DPS have certain amount of skill involved, you really soon, if you are a decent player even, you will reach that peak really soon. And then only way for you to gain more damage is to have more gear. For the healers, the skill cap is really high, and the amount of the, you know, how much your performance improve from your gear is not as big as for the DPS. So you do need to know and do need to understand that you as a healer can work so much and do so much just playing properly. Pre-healing, pre-casting, I would say, yeah, is a technique that is so important for you as a healer to understand, especially if you are a Holy Paladin, Resto Shaman. You know, as Resto Druid, it's a healer that is good on certain fights, but not as great. If we are talking about ICC, Discipline Priest is just clicking shields pretty much. But when you are playing classes that are casting, pre-casting is extremely important. And understanding that concept and practicing that will give you so much healing throughput, and your gear doesn't matter at all for that. Like, difference between you pre-casting properly or not pre-casting is that you will finish your cast when boss is topped off. You lost mana, you healed nothing, there is no gear involved there. You just fucked up. So precasting your heal before the damage happens, because you see ability, you know, that is happening, that boss is casting, you see it's 2 seconds and your heal is 1.5 seconds. You wait for that to be 1.4 and you start casting. And when boss hits, damage happens 0.1, 0.2 seconds after the damage happens, your heal lands and you instantly top off whoever needs to be topped off. So that technique is extremely important, again, on Sindragosa and on Lich King, because those two are pretty much the only two really hard healing environments in ICC. Blood Queen is really easy. Professor can be hard if people do not understand how to dodge Malibu Goo, but yeah, that's the pretty much only thing what is hard if your healers are dying from that. Also, what healers have and what you should master is that you need to be aware of what is happening around you. As a healer, you will use unit frames to heal people, and most of the unexperienced healers have tendency of just watching and tunneling on their unit frames, not paying attention on what is happening around them. Yes, you can get so much information from your unit frames, and there should be your focus, but you need to understand that when the events are happening, so you pay a little bit more attention on the environment around you, so you can move and dodge stuff properly. Practicing that is really important. And yeah, I think that's pretty much about the healers. Also, make sure if you are setting up assignments and you are lacking some, don't be shy to ask your paladins, retri paladins, to use Hand of Sacrifices on certain points, and if that is happening, you need to have some of the one guy from your healer group to call it out for those paladins to be using it. Again, Sindragosa, Lich King, those are two really important fights for that. For other stuff, it's really not that important. And yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to say about healers. If you have any question, as always ask, and yeah, I'll be seeing you in the next video. Bye bye.